Okay, as you know, Reverend T is not here today, but we have the pleasure of having the message delivered by our own licensed professional practitioner, Sandra Forrest. So please welcome, help me welcome her up to the podium.
Oh, good morning, Center of Peace. You see, I got all these books, but I won't be reading a lot out of them. You know, this month, the theme is loving. And as I was thinking about, well, what can I talk about? You know, am I going to give a definition of love, or what am I going to do in relationship to loving? And what came to me is that the first love is divine love, the love that loves you. And the second important love is self-love. And we don't spend a lot of time thinking about it because we're doing all the time. But I want to talk a little bit about self-love. One of the ways that Reverend T starts her messages is to talk about the spiritual principles. And I want to give you the spiritual principles underlying my message today. But I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to give you the non-jargon language for those principles. And as she reminds us, you can get these principles by going to our website and downloading them. It's back and forth. There are 11 principles, and we have taken the time to break them down for you. So this message today is based on principle number 1. Everything I see and experience is a manifestation of God. He, she, it has no equal. There is no good and bad, right or wrong. There is only the law being manifest. Spiritual principle number 4. There is nothing outside of me controlling my life. My life is a result of my thinking. It is done unto me as I believe. Principle number 5, I cannot change the world. I can only change myself. Yet I can be an inspiration to others. Peace begins with me. And principle number 8, nothing happens to me. It either happens by me, through me, or as me as a result of my thinking. Many of us grew up thinking that we weren't loved. And aside from the extreme cases, which unfortunately there are some children who are not loved, most of us, if we look at it, it may not be true, not in the way you think. Because as children, we interpret our world from a child's point of view, and often without all the information. I can remember in times taking workshops where we did that inner child thing and where we looked at our parents. For the most part, our parents just did what they knew to do. We don't come with manuals when we're born. And so what I've realized as I've gotten older is that my mother and father didn't know how to love me in the way that I needed or expected. They just didn't know. And they had their own challenges that they were preoccupied with. And that had nothing to do with how lovable I was. Nothing. So we interpret our world based on our feelings and beliefs at the time. And often we develop emotional triggers that are based on those feelings. And from then on, we react in ways not healthy, and we often have forgotten why we feel that way. So how do we get past being triggered by all that past emotional trauma and heal ourselves? It's about self-love. In the Science of Mind text, Ernest Holmes, and this is on page 435, self-healing must come first of all. If we think we can guide our brother aright while our own feet still walk in darkness, we are mistaken. We must first clarify our own vision, then we shall become as lights, lighting the way for others. But can we teach a lesson we have not learned? Can we give that which we do not possess? To suppose so is hypocrisy, a thing to be shunned. Jesus tears the mantle of unreality from the shoulders of hypocrisy, winnowing from the soul of sham and shallowness its last shred of illusion. We cannot see reality until our eyes are open, until the light of eternal truth has struck deeply into our own souls. This is an interpretation from the teachings of Jesus. It's about self-love. To strengthen our love, self-love in practice, we need to discover our true selves one day at a time. It doesn't happen all at once. We have to pay attention. We have to be aware. And we have to be willing to go deeper. Opening ourselves up to recognize that which is within us, that which sometimes we have suppressed, that which sometimes we don't want to look at. But believe me, there are no dark holes. What we have inside of us is truth, and only truth. And put aside any fear of looking within. Thank you. Put aside any fear of looking within. You won't fall into a black hole, but you will connect the dots of who you are right now. Spend some time with yourself to know what is true about you. In Spiritual Liberation, which is written by Michael Bernard Beckwith, I'm sure you're familiar with him if you're familiar with this philosophy. He says on page 120, awakening our inherent love nature can be messy and uncomfortable. We are often unaware of when and how low-level anxiety overtakes our minds. We've accepted it as normal to be tense, upset, reactionary, fearful, doubt-filled, and worried. We don't want to deny what's going on around us, that people are starving, that AIDS is ravaging the lives of men and women and children in parts of the world, that wars are taking place, that terrorism exists, that slavery still exists, that there are people who cause harm. What is required to begin shifting these external facts is maintaining a focus on individual inner change. Through our individual inner work, we discover that we have ample gifts to contribute to establishing an enlightened society. We then become motivated to deliver these gifts in a mindset of love, not out of fear that the world needs saving. We are not here to save the world, but to serve as an emerging paradigm of love, connectedness, and generosity of heart. Love is an antidote to fear-based approaches. So we need to spend time with ourselves. Spend time with ourselves knowing what's true about us. You know, people will tell you all kinds of things about you. I know, it doesn't matter. It could be a stranger will come up and tell you something about yourself. But you don't have to accept everything somebody says about you. Deep within you, you know the truth about who you are. So ask the question. If somebody comes up to you and tells you something, and you say, you feel a little uncomfortable, you think that they're saying something that's, not kind or whatever, ask the question. Ask yourself the question. Is that true about me? Only accept what you know to be true about you. Only accept what you know to be true about you. And you know what is true about you. Get quiet. My mother used to call me selfish all the time. It took me till I was in my 40s. Now, I won't tell you how old I am now. In my 40s to know that every time she told me I was selfish, it was about something she wanted me to do that I was unwilling to do. I know the truth about me is that I'm not a selfish person, but it took me a long time to figure that out because I was accepting what somebody else was saying about me. Know what is true for you and only believe that. And don't ask people for answers about what's true for you or what they think about you. Don't ask. The answers you will get from people when you ask that question is based on their journey. Not on yours, it's based on their journey. Now, if it's something that you know to be true about you, that's fine. Then that's an affirmation of what you already know. But for somebody to tell you something or give you some kind of answer about something that's happening in your lives, sit quietly and know the truth for yourself. So how do you know what's true for you? One thing I have found is that if I am uncomfortable, if I'm feeling not balanced, that's a time for me to sit in the quiet and ask myself, what am I feeling? Have I ever felt this way before? What is my earliest memory of this feeling? And the reason that I'm saying that those are good questions to ask, because if you want to understand yourself, you got to go inside and ask those kinds of questions. Because those kinds of questions will lead you to what it is that makes you who you are, that forms your belief systems about who you are. Being uncomfortable is a really good thing, actually. You know, because every time I get uncomfortable, it makes me sit down and think about, why am I uncomfortable? What's going on with me? Because I want to understand me. That's important because I can't understand anybody else. If I'm operating from a space where I don't even know who I am. So ask yourself these questions. And once you understand the why, because that's where these questions will lead you, once you understand the why, then you can decide, do I need to change? And you can set an intention for who and what you want to be. But you got to understand yourself. And that's part of self-love. Understanding who we are is part of self-love. And you can't love anybody else, truly, unconditionally, until you love yourself deeply and wholly. Because God loves you that way. And that's the way you must love yourself. And following this kind of practice is the beginning of healing and strengthening our sense of self. We can't love anyone else without condition until we truly love ourselves. We can't. I'm going to read a couple more things. And this is like a story. Today, there was a reference to Mark Nepo in the peace readings. Mark Nepo is a gentleman, and I do recommend this book. It's like a daily reading. This is a gentleman who had cancer and came out of that and spent some time understanding himself and understanding the whole human nature. But this reading is about loving yourself. So I'd like you to just take a moment to close your eyes and listen. In loving ourselves, we love the world. For just as fire, rock, and water are all made up of molecules, everything, including you and me, is connected by a small piece of the beginning. Yet how do we love ourselves? It is difficult at times as seeing the back of your head. It can be as elusive as it is necessary. I have tried and tripped many times, and I can only say that loving yourself is like feeding a clear bird that no one else can see. You must be still and offer your palm full of secrets like delicate seed. As she eats your secrets, no longer secret, she glows and you lighten, and her voice, which only you can hear, is your voice bereft of plans. And the light through her body will bathe you till you wonder why the gems in your palm were ever fisted. Others will think you crazed to wait on someone no one sees, but the clear bird only wants to feed and fly and sing. She only wants light in her belly, and once in a great while, if someone loves you enough, they might see her arise from the nest beneath your fear. In this way, I've learned that loving yourself requires a courage unlike any other. It requires us to believe in and stay loyal to something no one else can see that keeps us in the world, our own self-worth. All the great moments of conception, the birth of mountains, of trees, of fish, of prophets, and the truth of relationships that last, all begin where no one can see. And it is our job not to extinguish what is so beautifully begun. For once full of light, everything is safely on its way, not pain-free, but unencumbered. And the air beneath your wings is the same air that trills in my throat, and the empty benches and snow are as much a part of us as the empty figures who slouch on them in spring. When we believe in what no one else can see, we find we are each other. And all moments of living, no matter how difficult, come back into some central point where self and world are one, where light pours in and out at once. And once there, I realize, make real before me that this moment, whatever it might be, is a fine moment to live and a fine moment to die. Love is non-judgmental. It's giving, but it's also receiving. We must love ourselves in just this way: non-judgmental, giving, and receiving. That means loving every part of ourselves, warts and all. Only you are thinking about them as warts. Nobody else is paying attention to that. Giving to ourselves with unconditional love and opening to receive love from others and from the divine. Here are some ways to practice self-love. Be kind to yourself. Practice self-care. Set boundaries. Learn to say no and set boundaries for yourself. Challenge negative self-talk. Notice when you're having negative thoughts about yourself and try to reframe them. Practice mindfulness. Try mindfulness practices, guided meditation, whatever, but be silent sometimes. Identify your strengths. Recognize what you're good at and celebrate your accomplishments. Build positive relationships. Surround yourself with people who support you, and open yourself up to divine love. And that brings me to the last aspect of love, and that's healing our separation from the divine. When we feel fear, when we feel unloved, when we feel uncomfortable with others and with ourselves, that's a sign that you are feeling a certain amount of separation. You are not feeling that you are connected. You're not feeling that the God is within you. So healing that part of yourself is also about self-love. In Living the Science of Mind from Ernest Holmes, and on page 179, 180, the door that you alone can open. There's only a certain amount that can be taught. The rest must be learned through doing. Every man must discover God in his own way, but always within himself. Now there are many approaches to the door, and no doubt many entrances to the Holy of Holies. Every great spiritual leader has found a door through which he has entered. As we study spiritual systems through the ages, we discover that, though the approach has been varied, the temple of the Spirit is one. God is all there is, and there is none beside him. This statement includes everything. In all the kingdoms that exist, in all the planes that exist, and deep within the self, hidden and yet felt, there is a high priest ready to conduct us to the sacred and secret chamber of self, where God and man are one. The search for union passes into realization, not that we are just with or in, but we are of God. One with or one in implies separation. The great realization is that we are of that which is. We are some part of it. The end, the aim, and the whole purpose of our study is not for the salvation of the individual life, because life cannot be lost, but for the discovery of the self, which the Scripture tells us is hid with Christ in God. We have studied our techniques. We've come to understand something about how the science of mind works, and how to use it, what to do, and why. These, however, are guideposts on the way to the real discovery of self, the self that is hid with Christ in God, or the Son begotten of the only Father. The end and aim of our search is to discover that universe which is individualized in each of us, and that individuality within each of us, which now has the possibility of expanding to the universalization of the self. God's love is unconditional for all that is created, and that is how we should love ourselves, so that we can love others in the same way. Let's begin with self-love, and from there, love the world. And so it is. Practitioners, and so we acknowledge the presence of God right here, right now, within each of us. And this is a power that is expressed in the creation of all things. And knowing that this power is within us and that we can create in the same way. For our individualization is the allowance for God to create through us. For we are creators with God. I know that today and always, each of us is loved in a divine way. Each of us has the power to love in a divine way. And I know that that is happening all the time. I know that as we look at each other, we see divine love. We see ourselves reflected in each person that we meet. And if that reflection is not there, it is because they have not realized it. But we can send love, we can be love, and we can allow others to know that they are loved. And so I say this to know that we go from here today with love in our hearts, with love in our minds, knowing our own self-love has created the love that will love the world. I am grateful. I am grateful for that love within me. I am grateful for seeing that love in the eyes of all I meet. I am grateful for being able to carry that light into the world. And I know that each of us has the power to do so and heal the world. So I am grateful. I am grateful in all aspects of my life. I say thank you for all that I have and all that I will have. I say thank you for all of you out there who know not how much power you have, but you will know. I give thanks for that knowledge and that truth, and I know that we will reflect it as we go out. I know that these words are powerful, for they are built in love. I know love. I know that you know love, and I know that God is love. I am grateful, and I anchor these words by saying, and so it is. Thank you. And now, as we leave to go out in the world, we ignore all strife, all negativity, all the stuff that's out there. Don't look at the news. Know that you are love and you are God. Take that with you, warm your heart, and allow your heart to warm others. And so it is.